Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live. We're here with an entrepreneur extraordinaire. Good morning.
Good morning. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, could you explain what unusual product and mindset you're really marketing and introducing and educating to all of us?
Sure. Well, first of all, my name is Catharine Arnston, and I am the founder and CEO of a company called ENERGYbits. We're based in Boston. We're 10 years old, and we sell algae in tiny tablet form. Now, anybody who's swum in the ocean knows that there's algae in the ocean, and I'm going to tell you about why you may want to have a lot of respect for that algae. Although do not eat anything that's in the ocean because that stuff's toxic. You only want the algae I'm going to be talking about, which is cultivated as a agricultural crop. And it comes and we sell it in tiny tablets. And one of the first things people are surprised to hear is that algae is a food crop. It's no different than broccoli or kale. It's not a supplement. Supplements are made in factories from extracts, artificial ingredients, and algae is a food. So let me tell you how I got started. First of all, I'm actually Canadian, although I have lived in Boston for over 30 years. And I have an MBA and I was doing international business. And then out of the blue, about 12 years ago, my younger sister in Canada, in Toronto, developed breast cancer. She's fine now, by the way, so don't worry about that. It was rough going for a while, but she's 12 years cancer-free.
Great.
And her oncologist in Canada advised her to change her diet to an alkaline diet because it would help with her healing. She was going to do the chemotherapy. Now, they didn't tell her what an alkaline diet was or why it was good for her. So the first thing she did was called me, and of course I love my sister, and I'm also a very good researcher. So I said, I have no idea what an alkaline diet is, but we will find out and I will help you and we'll get through this together. And it turned out that an alkaline diet was primarily a plant-based diet because of the phytonutrients and the chlorophyll that are in plants, like vegetables and salads, that help build your immune system. So she did change her diet. I did a lot of research, found some foods that she should eat, foods that she should stop eating. She did go through chemo. She completely healed. And in the process of helping her, I started reading about plant-based nutrition. Now, this was 12 years ago. Nobody was talking about plant-based nutrition like they are now. Now it's mainstream. But after reading all these books and seeing all the science that documented all these health benefits, I thought, my gosh, somebody needs to tell the rest of America about this. And I thought, well, I have no background in nutrition. I have no science background whatsoever, but I am a very passionate individual, and anyone who knows me knows that. I thought, I'm going to give it a shot. I have no idea how I'm going to do this and get people to be healthier, but I helped my sister, and I thought I could help a few more. So the first thing I did was go get
just on your sister.
Yes.
What was her transformation? Was it gradual? Was it immediate? Did she lose weight? Did her skin get more better color? What were some of the
she didn't lose any weight, but she, like everybody with the chemotherapy, she lost all her hair, her eyebrows, very, very tired. And she has two young, well, they're not young anymore. She had at the time 2 young children who are now in their 20s. And she had been a very active young woman, very fit, just very engaged with the community. So, and I have 2 sisters, and all of us are, really healthy, eat healthy. I mean, she was eating a, healthy diet. So it was stunning to have, it was devastating because it was so unexpected. But she, and as I said, she did go through chemotherapy, but she followed her doctor's orders, and she eliminated things like processed foods and coffee. There's, and we can talk about the acidity issue when we get to the COVID thing, but it was about a year, it took her about a year to recover. And she goes for annual checkups, and we have a annual celebration. My sisters and I get together once a year to celebrate her cancer-free diagnosis. So, she's and she's maintained a relatively alkaline diet ever since. So, yeah, it was, just about everybody in the world now either has a family member or a close friend with a cancer diagnosis of any kind. And the same is whatever contributes to breast cancer in most cases contributes to any kind of cancer. And when we talk about the COVID situation, I want to also, expand that concept, because it's our bodies need nutrients and they don't need toxins. And in our world right now, we're surrounded by toxins and we're missing the nutrients. And that's why I love algae so much. And that's why I want people to understand what algae is, because it is the most nutrient dense food in the world and does really remove toxins. So, and for your listeners who are athletes, it's the best thing that you can ever do for your body to improve your performance of any kind. So she's fine now. And in the process of helping her, I learned, as I said, about this plant-based nutrition concept, and decided I needed, now that I, had so much knowledge, I had a motivation to share it. So I got a certificate in health coaching at a place called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in New York. And then after I graduated, I thought, well, now what? I thought, well, okay, I'll teach plant-based nutrition. So I taught nutrition at corporations. I put a curriculum together and I gave a course at hospitals, corporations, anybody who would let me in to speak to their employees. And this experience is what really led me closer to algae. Algae was just one of the many things I had recommended to my sister. And so I hadn't really gotten on the algae train yet. But when I gave these courses, I learned that everybody knows they should eat more vegetables. Everybody knows they should eat more salads. But the problem is everyone's busy. It's a lot of work to buy all these vegetables from the grocery store. Maybe you aren't even close to a grocery store. They're heavy to carry home. They take up a lot of room in your fridge. They take a lot of time to cook, a lot of time to clean up. A lot of people don't even like the flavor. A lot of people have problems with lectins and have gas from eating them. Their husbands won't eat them. Their children won't eat them. There was a litany of reasons that I encountered from everybody I was speaking to when I was teaching about why they weren't eating vegetables and weren't getting the plant-based nutrition that they needed. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to help people get healthy, I need to find a way to get this plant-based nutrition, this chlorophyll, into their bodies, but make it in a way that's fast, easy, simple, safe, maybe doesn't even taste green. So I had no idea, once again, how I was going to do that, but back to the internet I went, and I just started researching things, and one after another, and I finally got back to algae, which I had found for my sister. But I thought, I'm going to take a closer look at this. And as I circled back to algae, I was stunned by what I started learning. First of all, it's the most alkaline food in the world. Remember, that's what started this whole process. My sister's oncologist told her to have an alkaline diet, so that's box checked. It's the most nutrient-dense food in the world. NASA says that 1 gram of algae has the nutrition of 1,000 grams of fruits and vegetables. 1 to 1,000. And we're going to talk about, dosages and stuff. And we sell the algae in tiny tablets that are about the size of a baby aspirin. So just visualize one tiny little tablet, the size of a baby aspirin, has the nutrition of 2 heaping plates of vegetables. Now, these are 2 heaping plates of vegetables that you didn't have to carry home from the grocery store, put in your fridge, cook, clean, and eat. So it's what I call efficient nutrition. But anyways, back to algae. So it was alkaline, nutrient dense. It's been used for centuries around the world, most notably for the last 50 years in Asia, where it's a food crop. It's an agricultural crop, almost as big of an industry as the beef industry. So it's been used daily by millions, tens of millions of people for 50 years. In Japan, they don't take vitamins, they only take Chlorella algae. And it's the most studied food in the world. There's 100,000 studies documenting all the benefits I'm going to be telling you about algae, whether it's immunity or longevity or athletic performance, great skin. It's all documented, all in NIH Live. I've got access to probably 2,000 or 3,000 of these articles and studies, and there's, as I said, 100,000. So it's the most studied food in the world. The only trouble it seemed with algae, oh yes, and if you swallowed these tablets, even though they're chewable, if you swallowed them, you don't taste anything green. So it met all of the requirements, all the limitations that people were having to eat greens, because it doesn't take any time, it doesn't taste green, it has all the nutrients they need, it's alkaline. I mean, everything. The only trouble with algae, it seemed, was that the quality was poor because most of it came from China, and that nobody knew about it. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what it did. So I thought, okay, this seems to be, and the other thing that we don't want to leave out is the fact that algae is the most eco-friendly, sustainable food crop in the world. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that because, you know, people eat a lot of fish or fish oil to get omega-3, but it's damaging the oceans. I mean, this is WOWSA, you know, you got to protect those oceans. And one of the best ways to do that is to stop buying fish oil, which is causing overfishing of the fish and dead zones in the ocean. And where do you think the fish get the omega-3 from? They get it from algae. So anyways, I decided 10 years ago when I learned all about these amazing things about algae that I was going to spend the rest of my life devoting it to educating people about algae, why it's so good for you, why it will help you and your children, why it will help the earth. And I'm almost 11 years in, and we're just starting to make some headway.
I have so many questions. One is, you started plant. You went from plant and you got to algae.
Yes.
That seems to be a big jump for Homo sapien that is used to living on dry land to algae. When was that jump made from helping?
Sure. Algae, so first of all, algae was the first life on Earth. So before, that was almost 4 billion years ago. So, you know, we've only been on Earth 800 million years. So algae's been here 3.2 billion years longer than humans have been. So before algae, Earth was just gas and water. Now algae releases oxygen while it's growing. So it took about 1 billion years for enough oxygen to be, I have no idea what caused algae to start growing, but you know, that's another topic, another you know, scientific project. But nonetheless, after 1 billion years, there was enough oxygen on Earth that other life forms could grow. So algae started growing in the water, but and that was the spirulina, and they have fossils to prove this. And then about 1 billion years after that, there was another form of algae called Chlorella, which and spirulina, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this next. Spirulina belongs to the bacteria family. It has no cellulose wall and no nucleus. But Chlorella algae does belong to the plant kingdom, and it has a hard cellulose wall, and and that hard cell wall has amazing health benefits to it. So algae, because it started in the ocean and eventually, and is the intermediary step between life in the ocean and life on Earth, it developed a lot of survival techniques, one of which is this hard cell wall, so it could survive growing without water. And algae is the most fascinating, it's not even technically a plant, it's a sea vegetable, but it is so fascinating because it never dies. Any other crop, any other land crop like soy or corn, or doesn't matter what it is, if the growing conditions deteriorate, like the sun goes away or there's no rain, it just dies, right? Not algae. Algae will go dormant indefinitely until the growing conditions return. And I think that was part of the survival technique it developed as it moved from the ocean into the land. And as an example of that, I read about a National Geographic team that went up to the Antarctic a couple of years ago, and they took some ice chips that they carbon dated to be, you know, almost 3 billion years old, and there was some algae attached to it. So out of curiosity, they put the algae in a petri dish and added some water to it, and wouldn't you know, it started growing again. Oh, wow. So it's crazy, and that's why when you buy our algae tablets, they literally never go bad. We have to put an expiry date on them, but you know, which is usually 2 or 3 years, but you could have them for 10 or 20 years and it would still be fine. Wow. So it's the most you know, I was on Shark Tank a while ago, and Mark Cuban accused me of not, he says, I don't think you're in love. He said, I don't think you're in love with being an entrepreneur. You're just in love with algae. And my response to him was, Well, if you knew as much about algae as I did, you would be in love with algae too. And you have to think about it. I've now spent over 11 years studying algae, and I am as excited about algae, even more excited about algae and what it can do for our world, what it can do for our health, what it can do for our children than ever before. And fortunately, other parts of the world are discovering algae and its multiple applications, and we can cover some of that too, because it's everyone from Reebok making shoes out of algae to companies in the UK that Unilever have just invested in, who are making packaging out of algae because you can eat the package after you finish your water bottle or your condiment or whatever. So anyways, so I want to assure you, first of all, algae has been here a lot longer than we have. It's, I call it intelligent food because you have to be intelligent to take it, and it knows what to do in your body. But let's step back a little bit, because the only algae most people are familiar with is the kind that maybe grows in their swimming pool or their aquarium, or they see messy stuff on the beachfront. So I want to step back and explain exactly what algae is, and then we'll go into a bit of a deep dive on the main two that are grown as agricultural crops that I think every single person on Earth should be taking every day. So first of all, algae is its own food category. You have fruits as a category, you have vegetables. Algae is neither one of those. So algae is its own category. And then within algae as a food category, there are two subcategories. One that many people already know about is called macroalgae. Now this is seaweed, dulse, kelp, all that big stringy stuff that you see washed up on shore. It has a lot of fiber and it has iodine because it comes from the ocean, but it doesn't have a lot of nutrition. It's not 1,000 less times more nutrition than the other algae, which is microalgae. So we have macro, big stringy stuff, and microalgae. Microalgae is called microalgae because it's microscopic in size. You cannot see this. It's so tiny. This is what feeds all the fish in the ocean, the whales. Microalgae is in every lake, stream, soil, ocean, water body, everywhere. But all of it is toxic to humans. It is fine for the fish. It's fine for the whales, not fine for us. And there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that algae will absorb whatever's in the water. And if there's toxins in the water, it will be absorbing them and you will be eating them. So there's only two types of algae that you want to consume. Well, let me step back. So within microalgae, you have two main categories. One is called green algae and one is called blue-green. Now the reason why it's called green is because there's only one pigment in it, and that's chlorophyll that most people know about. And the other one is blue-green because it has two pigments. It has chlorophyll and it has a second pigment which is called phycocyanin, and it's a beautiful blue color like the Aegean Sea, sort of like your backdrop. It has a lot of amazing healing properties, and we can talk about some of those. So microalgae breaks into blue, green, and green. So one of the blue-green microalgae is called spirulina, and one of the green algae that we're going to talk about is called chlorella. These are the two that are harvested as food crops. Now, the reason why I want to mention that they're only one of these blue, green, or green strains is because you might go on the internet and you'll read about toxic blue-green algae. Yes, if it was grown in the ocean or if it was grown in a swamp. You know, if you have a swamp, you wouldn't drink water from a swamp, right? Because it's full of toxins. Well, that doesn't mean water's bad. It just means that water is bad. Same with algae. Do not assume when you read stuff about algae in the ocean being toxic. Yes, because the ocean is toxic. But the two we're going to talk about, spirulina and chlorella, are harvested as food crops it's called hydroponically. Now this is how lots of vegetables are grown, lettuce, tomatoes, and these farms that grow the algae, they are about 10 times the size of an Olympic stadium. This is not a small industry. Remember, they've been growing these algae in Asia for 50 years. So it's a very sophisticated industry. The company that grows ours is in Taiwan, and we're going to talk about why our algae is considered the safest, purest, most nutrient dense, and we're the only algae that's sold through doctors, functional medicine, chiropractors, nutritionists, and it's because our quality is so high and our purity is so guaranteed, and we do third-party lab tests. But nonetheless, Taiwan is world recognized for having the highest quality algae. Japan also has very good algae, especially, well, Chlorella, but then there's still concern about the Fukushima disaster and radiation in the water and all that sort of stuff. So when you grow spirulina in fresh water, you know, ours is triple filtered spring mountain water. It's very clean, very pure. What does spirulina do? Well, first of all, it has the highest concentration of protein in the world. Now ours is 64% protein. That is 3 times the amount of protein as animal protein, 3 times. This is why the United Nations in 1976 had a global conference on spirulina algae and declared it the answer to world hunger in 1976. That's like over 40 years ago, because it has the highest amount of protein in the world, and because it's eco-friendly, sustainable. Now, not only does it have way more protein than animal protein, and it's way more eco-friendly, all the protein in both the algae, especially spirulina, is already in amino acid form. Now, if there's any athletes listening, they know the importance of amino acids. When you eat animal protein, your body cannot absorb that protein. It has to break it down first into amino acids, and that can take up to 3 days, and you end up absorbing about 10% of the protein as amino acids. With spirulina and Chlorella, all the protein's already in amino acid form, so your body doesn't have to do any work to get access to them. And it's 100% bio, or 99.9% bioavailable. So you don't have to wait, and you don't have to work to get access to the amino acids. And even better, because spirulina is a bacteria and has no cellulose wall, all those aminos are absorbed instantly if you chew it, and within 5 or 10 minutes if you swallow it. This is one of the reasons why we were endorsed first as a sports nutrition product when we first started, because the runners found out about how the spirulina gives them energy because of all the amino acids, and we're going to talk about the B vitamins and the electrolytes and everything. So ultra runners, marathon runners, triathletes, Olympic athletes, we worked with so many Olympic teams during the Winter Sochi Olympics that we had invitations, and I sent 2 of my team over to Sochi, and we had complete invitations and access to the American Olympic Village and the Canadian Olympic Village. So athletes love the spirulina because it gives them energy because of all this rich amino acids, plus it's loaded with B vitamins, and anyone knows about B vitamins, that's what converts glucose and amino acid into energy. So it all is already in all the spirulina. Spirulina also has a very high amount of iron. Iron is what carries oxygen in your blood. So when you have more oxygen, you have more energy. It also releases nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is what's called a vasodilator, and that's important for athletes or for anyone because it opens up your blood vessels, and more oxygen and nutrients can reach your brain and your muscles so that you have more energy from that. It also is loaded with essential fatty acids like omega-3, as I mentioned, another one called GLA that behaves like an omega-3, so it reduces inflammation, improves brain functioning. It has boron, which protects your myelin sheath and facilitates thought. So for athletes, you know, one of the first things that goes when you're tired is your brain and your focus. So anyway, spirulina has always been known as an energizing algae. That's why we call ours ENERGYbits, because it makes it a lot easier to understand what it does. So it's very powerful, 40 vitamins and minerals. It can be used for intermittent fasting. It's a terrific way to help people with hunger, because all that fatty acids and the protein satisfies your hunger. Oh, by the way, there's only 1 calorie per tablet. So if you are on a weight loss mission, then this would certainly help. But nonetheless, it gives you all the energy, and it's not from calories. It's from the amino acids, the iron, and there's lots of other nutrient transactions I can discuss, but that's spirulina. Chlorella is completely different. Chlorella, remember spirulina I said has the highest concentration of protein in the world. Chlorella has the highest chlorophyll in the world. Why is chlorophyll important? Because chlorophyll is alkaline and chlorophyll builds your immune system. Chlorophyll is the most cleansing substance in the world. That's why so many people do cleanses with vegetable juices. Well, and I used to wonder, what exactly does cleansing mean? And I'm going to tell you. So chlorophyll, it turns out, is a fat-based pigment. And the reason why that's important is because all of your health issues start at the cellular level. So your cell and your cell wall have to be healthy to allow your mitochondria to function. And one of the things that keeps those cells walls healthy is healthy fats. And because chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment, it makes sure that that happens. And the best analogy I've come up with is, when you have dirty windows, you can't see out and sunlight can't come in. And it's even worse if your car windows are dirty, right? There's an accident waiting to happen. So think of chlorophyll as window washers for your cell walls. And what that means is by keeping your cell walls clean, it allows nutrients to get in and toxins to get out. And that's what's cleansing about chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll has been used for decades for improving health. And in fact, and I used to wonder about that. And one of the reasons that it does this is because if you look online, and we'll send you some notes, the chemical composition of chlorophyll is virtually identical to your hemoglobin. Virtually identical. There's about 70 different bonds and pieces, but there's only one atom that's different between chlorophyll and your blood. And in chlorophyll, that atom is magnesium, and in your blood, it's iron. And Mother Nature knows what she's doing. And there's got to be a reason why chlorophyll and your blood are virtually identical. It's because chlorophyll builds your blood. This is why it's so healthy for you. This is why it's so cleaning. This is why it's so important for your immune system. And it explained, because I used to read that back in World War II, if they ran out of blood transfusions for the injured, they used to give them liquid chlorophyll because they would heal just as fast as if they'd had a blood transfusion. And now I understand why. It's because the chemical composition is almost identical. So the fact that chlorella has the highest amount of chlorophyll in the world, it has 1,000 times more chlorophyll than Chinese greens, it has 200 times more than spinach, 25 times more than wheatgrass or liquid chlorophyll. You just can't get any more chlorophyll than in chlorella. So if you don't like greens, or if your family won't eat them, or it's too much work, or you can't get access to them, this is your answer. You don't have to cook them, clean them, eat them, nothing. You just open your mouth, down the hatch a couple of tablets, and you've just met your needs for chlorophyll. The other amazing thing about chlorella, in addition to having the highest chlorophyll in the world, is it has the hardest cell wall in the plant kingdom. Remember I said spirulina has no cell wall, which is why it gets absorbed so quickly. Chlorella is the polar opposite. It has the hardest. Now there's two really important things about that hard cell wall that you need to know about that boost your immune system. And we're going to talk about COVID later on. So what does that hard cell wall do? Well, number one, and it's been used for decades for this purpose, it pulls out toxins. It chelates, removes heavy metals of any kind, lead, mercury, radiation. We work with biological dentists who use it to pull out mercury when people are having their fillings pulled out. The dentists take it because they don't want the fumes from the mercury. And also they want their patients to take it because they might get some drippings from the mercury. It's used for people with taking chemotherapy. It pulls out excess radiation so they're not as sick. It was used at Chernobyl. It was used at Fukushima. After the Fukushima disaster 8 years ago, the global supply of chlorella was bought up within 24 hours by everybody in Asia because they knew chlorella is the only thing that pulls out radiation. So very, very important for pulling out toxins of any kind, whether it's toxins from mold. We work with athletes who use it after their workouts because it pulls out lactic acid. It detects lactic acid as a as a toxin, so your muscles aren't sore the next day. We have some people that, everyone loves this one, it will detect alcohol as a toxin. So if you have any wine or beer or any kind of alcohol, you take the Chlorella tablets, you lean a full serving, and you are sober in an hour and a half, because Chlorella will clean your blood in an hour and a half. It will clean out your cells in about 7 to 10 days, and it will clean out your organs in 3 to 6 months. It's all about the density of the cellular structure. Your blood is very liquid, so that's why it can work so quickly. So yeah, if you take these after drinking, you'll be sober and you will never have a hangover. So Chlorella is known as a wellness algae. It helps you recover from your day. It helps you recover from your sports. It helps you recover from drinking. So that's why we call our Chlorella RECOVERYbits, because it makes it easy to understand what it does. So let's go back to some of the other wellness benefits of Chlorella. It's got that high chlorophyll, it's very cleansing. It's got that hard cell wall. And that hard cell wall, as a lot of people are starting to understand, contains polysaccharides, which feed your biome the nutrients it needs to release what's called short chain fatty acids. People are starting to realize, the scientists are starting to realize that your biome, your gut biome, is where your health, the rubber hits the road, and you've got to feed those bacteria what they need, and what they need is fiber. And there's fiber in the hard cell wall of the Chlorella. There isn't any in the Spirulina because it doesn't have a cell wall, cellulose wall. So this explains to me why Chlorella has been used for decades for IBS, Crohn's disease, any kind of digestive issues, any kind of bowel movement issues. So, and it's a combination of the chlorophyll, which is cleansing, the hard cell wall, which it pulls out toxins, and the fact that it has this high, dense cell wall that provides the important fiber for your biome. So again, Chlorella is very much on the wellness side. It has other nutrients like the highest RNA and DNA in the world, which helps your cells grow back as you get older. It has the daily requirement of K2, which moves excess calcium out of your soft tissue into your bones. So it prevents osteoporosis, which is very, very important for women. So, and there's 1,000 other things I could tell you about if we had more time, but I don't want to burden you too much with more detail. I think at this point, if you understand that Spirulina gives you energy, mentally, physically, satisfies your hunger, is great for intermittent fasting, that's all you need to know at this point. And Chlorella is a wellness detoxing algae that builds your immune system and improves your longevity. And because most people want energy and their hunger satisfied in the morning and during the day, we generally recommend the Spirulina during the morning, during the afternoon, anytime you're fatigued, before a workout, and then take the Chlorella, at least take it at night, because your body goes through a detox anyways when you're sleeping. So this will facilitate your detox, and it's so important when you're sleeping to detox because it pulls out aluminum out of your brain, it pulls out toxins from your cells, it gets you ready for a good bowel movement, blah, 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 blah. So, but you can take either of them any time of day with food instead of food. Most people prefer to swallow the Spirulina because it's very chewy because of the high protein and essential fatty acids, and it has a very earthy flavor. That is takes a while to get used to it, but you could chew it if you wanted. And most people like the Chlorella, particularly if you chew it with sea salts or macadamians or almonds. It gives it a much richer flavor. So, and if you only took 3 or 4 of each tablets of each day, you would certainly benefit. If you want the full detox and health benefits from Chlorella, we do recommend the full single serving, which is closer to 15 or 30 tablets. If you want outstanding athletic performance, we do recommend the full 15 or 30 tablets of Spirulina. But just keep in mind, every one of those tablets has the nutrition of 2 heaping plates of vegetables that you didn't have to buy, cook, clean, or eat. So it's really easy for people. There is no reason why anybody shouldn't be taking algae, and it's safe for newborns, pets, granddads, grandmoms, any age group. It doesn't matter who you are, where you live, as long as you buy it from a reputable company like ours, ENERGYbits, which we're documented to having the cleanest, purest, because you never know. There's a lot of product, a lot of companies selling cheaper algae that is full of toxins and doesn't have the certifications of cleanliness that we have. But I can almost promise you, you will see an improvement in your health, your performance, your focus, and you know, and when we get to the COVID, I'll tell you some more detail about why you definitely want the algae to protect you from that. Oops, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. You described the perfect food.
Yep, pretty much.
Everything. But there is a challenge to get your products on the tables of Americans. What is that challenge? If something's so perfect, why aren't people eating it? We want them to. They know the benefits.
Yeah. Well, the reason why, and I tell people algae isn't new. It's just new to you. And the reason why it's not currently on the tables or, you know, in people's hands, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, nobody in America grew up with algae. You know, 99% of algae is grown in Japan, China, Taiwan, India. And so think about it. I live in Boston and we see transport trucks driving around with Dunkin' Donuts all the time. I used to live in Vancouver where it's a big lumber industry, and it was quite normal to see big trucks driving by with huge logs on their way to the mills. And if you live in the Midwest, it's quite normal to see trucks going by with wheat, you know, on its way to be milled into bread. So there's a level of familiarity that just does not exist in America. Whereas in Japan or Taiwan, it's quite normal for them to see trucks of algae going by to go get dried. So number one, nobody has grown up with algae, period. So there's no vernacular, there's no point of reference like there is for other things that are in our lifestyle, in our diet. Number two is there are lots of foods and herbs and very, very valuable nutrients in other countries that have existed for centuries that have not yet been introduced to the American or Canadian or community. So think about it. 20 years ago, nobody knew about stevia, but it had been used for centuries in South America. Up until about 15, maybe 10 years ago, nobody knew about chia seed, but it had been used in you know, by the Aztecs for centuries to feed them when they went to war. Same thing with chia, flax seeds or quinoa. These are all things that existed as part of a country's normal dietary habits that it took some brave entrepreneur to introduce them into America, because Americans are, if they don't know about it, they think it can't be important, and you know, whatever. So so my challenge has been to find a way to introduce algae to North America in a way that makes it comforting and not so weird, because all people think about, they either don't think about algae at all or they just think that it's pond scum. So the fact that it was not part of our lifestyle is one big impairment, but I'm doing my best to educate people. Number two is because it's all grown in Asia and that's where the market is. Most of the algae up until recently that's been imported from Asia still had Asian packaging. So in some cases it was still an Asian, text. So why would anybody buy that? Even if it was translated into English, the packaging was so weird and so unconsumer friendly that would end up on the bottom shelf of some strange health food store, and you'd have to be really out there to even know about it, let alone buy it. So everything that we've done, I designed all the packaging. I know your community can't see this, but I've designed all the packaging, and I chose words that try to explain what the algae does. So Chlorella is a tough word to think about or even to say. So, but recovery, that's a word people understand. And I package them in a way that make them very consumer friendly to address that issue. The other thing is that because algae is food, it's like broccoli or kale. You can't patent broccoli. So the biotech companies were interested because there's no patent that they could use to protect once they got it into the marketplace. And if anybody is not familiar with how the food industry works, let me tell you, the food industry does not introduce new things. They wait for a passionate entrepreneur like myself, and there's thousands of us out there, by the way. I'm not the only one. We usually are inspired to do something because we've had a personal problem, or a family member, as in my case, family member, and we decided to do something about it. We did our own research and we would find a solution that wasn't currently available. And it's only through passion, trust me, that would keep an entrepreneur pursuing something like this, as I have, to educate people, to gather the research, to gather the momentum, to find the right resources, to find the right ways to grow it. And then what happens is, once the entrepreneur has proven there's a market opportunity, then a big food company will step in and maybe invest or maybe buy the company. And this happens in every single food category. That's why, you know, chia seed is now normalized. You see, and distributed by large companies. There's, you know, CBD oil is the most recent example of that. And, you know, that was researched for decades. And then finally it was included in the 2018 Farm Bill, which, you know, allowed it to be sold throughout the country. And then that's what spawned a lot of growth. By the way, speaking of the Farm Bill, because even the legislators in America are starting to hear about the nutritional density and eco-friendly sustainable issues with algae, they included in the 2019 Farm Bill something called the Algae Agricultural Act, which is the first time they've ever introduced any incentives to American farmers to grow algae here in America. And which just is again a tip off to me that finally algae is starting to get recognized. And I also, it's a great segue also to remind people that algae is not a supplement, because it's like, well, show me a supplement farm, right? Algae is not a supplement. It's a food crop. And the reason why that's so important is your body does not recognize supplements. You can spend all the money you want on supplements and you are absorbing about 5% of it. So, because they're made from extracts and they're made in manufacturing plants that use high heat. And whenever you use high heat, you kill enzymes, you change the chemical composition of the nutrients. So, and that's why when you buy vitamins, you'll see the numbers are so high, because even the manufacturers know you're not going to absorb all of that. You're going to absorb about 5% of it. So when you buy algae, especially ours, because we don't use high heat to dry it, and that's one of the things that we do differently, among other things. All the enzymes are intact, so it's still a raw food. None of the nutrition has been decimated. So when you take algae, you absorb all of it compared to about 5 or 10% of it from supplements. And your body knows what to do with it. It goes, oh, okay, I know what this is, because algae is from nature, and so is your body. But that's why you haven't seen it in America or Canada very much. It's just not part of our daily routine. Nobody has explained what algae does, why it works. No one has packaged it in a way that makes it friendly and takes the weirdness away from it. No one's ensured that the quality has been pure and not just, you know, some garbage coming from China. And that's what we do. I take a lot of pride in doing all the science research. I am the chief scientific officer. I write all the papers. I've written about 250. There's lots on our website if you're interested in the COVID explanation. It's all science-backed. I don't say anything unless I have NIH documents, scientific papers that prove whatever it is that I'm talking about. The trouble is, all this science has existed for decades, but scientists like to talk to other scientists. They don't know how to talk to mere mortals because they have so much vernacular and they like to, you know, go deep into their topic. it's actually advantageous that I did not have a scientific background, although I have a scientific mind. So I have backed into the science, and I love researching the science, and then I rewrite it in a way to communicate to consumers and athletes or practitioners what algae does in a way that they could understand it, because I would want to know it that way as well. But I do have the science to back it up. It was rough going at first because I didn't have a science background, but that's why the knowledge of science hasn't eked its way out, even though the science is there. It's just that nobody's taken the time to make it more mainstream.
Great. Now, how can swimmers purchase your perfect food?
Well, they can go online to ENERGYbits.com. We sell it in large bags of 1,000 tablets. Now a large bag has about it normally is $120, but we have a 20% discount code. The discount code is WOWSA, WOWSA, and that will give you 20% off of everything that's on the website. Now there's 2 brands of spirulina. One is called ENERGYbits and one is called BEAUTYbits. And the reason for that is that when I first started, we found out that women didn't like the packaging of the ENERGYbits. And my girlfriend said, you should give it a cute name and make it pink. And because it does build your skin and hair, we made a separate version of BEAUTYbits. So someone said, oh, we got a boy spirulina and a girl spirulina, pretty much. And the Chlorella is called RECOVERYbits because it helps you recover your health and recover from your day, recover from your sports. And then we have another brand called VitalityBits, which is a blend of the 2 algae. But what I wanted you to know is that I don't want you to have sticker shock when you see that it's $120 because, well, it'll be $96 with your WOWSA discount. You have to remember NASA said that 1 gram of algae has the nutrition of 1,000 grams of fruits and vegetables. So I did the math and figured out that one of our bags with 1,000 tablets has the nutrition of 551 pounds of vegetables. That's about 30 grocery carts of vegetables. Now, if you bought, and it's organic, so if you bought organic vegetables and you bought 551 pounds at $3 a pound, that's $1,500 worth of food. $1,500 worth of vegetables you didn't have to carry home from the grocery store, clean, cook, or eat. So I call it efficient nutrition. So what you're doing is by taking the algae, you can get rid of a lot of your vitamins. You don't need a multi, you certainly don't need a fish oil. You don't need magnesium, potassium, CoQ10. It replaces all of those and you'll absorb it much better. It also replaces, for your athletes who are listening, any sports fuel. Please don't take any goo or bars that are loaded with soy protein. Very bad for you, not good for your gut. Algae is a great fuel, especially spirulina. You take 10 or 15 of these before a big swim. I promise you, your focus will be amazing. You'll have more energy. It's just quiet energy. It won't be lightning bolts, but you just won't fatigue. And then after your workout, take the Chlorella, because that will pull out lactic acid, help, a lot of times when you do competitions, I know there aren't any right now, but when they do come back, when you're training and you train hard, your body is pressed and you very often get sick after a big competition. So the Chlorella will keep your immune system strong, and while you're training, it will pull out lactic acid so your muscles aren't sore. So now if you're not ready for a big bag that you can buy on ENERGYbits.com, that's ENERGY, B for boy, T for Tom, S for Sam. We do sell single packets on Amazon for $4 each. So you can go to Amazon and for a very low trial, $4, you get prime shipping. You can try them out and then come back to the website to buy the larger bag. I promise you that the quality is uncomparable, and we do the third-party lab tests. We even test for any kind of toxins, brain toxins, metals, nothing. We're the cleanest algae that you're going to get, and it's just very efficient nutrition. So, and we're very active on social, so you can come and visit us at Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Our handle is @ENERGYbits. We do lots of contests and free stuff. But those are the 2 main places, either our website, ENERGYbits.com, or go to Amazon to get the smaller packet. I don't know if we have time to talk about the COVID or not, but
yes, if you can mention the.
okay, well, because it is just so prevalent and that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, the key here is to build your immune system, keep it strong. And if you've noticed that most of the people that are dying from COVID tend to be elderly, or they already have a pre-existing health condition. Now, the reason why that's happening is because we know that the elderly do not eat well. And so, and we're going to talk about that. So they don't have the nutrition that they need to build a strong immune system. There's about 12 different nutrients that your immune system needs to stay strong, and they're all in the algae. So you don't have to run out and buy a ton more supplements. You don't have to cook anything special. Just get them from the algae. And then when you already have a condition, especially diabetes or heart condition, your immune system's already working over time to try to combat that. So there's nothing left to fight the COVID. Now there's a lot of science, and we have it on our website, that has shown that spirulina, that blue pigment that I mentioned, it seems to have the ability to block the virus from entering your cell. What it does is it blocks what's called a receptor cell so that the COVID cannot actually penetrate the cell. But it also builds your immune system so you're more or less likely to even get it. And the way I help people understand this is I help them to understand what your immune system is, because if you don't know how it works, you don't know how to protect it, right? So basically your immune system is your first defense to protect you from pathogens, illness, anything that shouldn't be in your body. And there's two ways I describe it. One, I break it into what's called your visible immune system, and then the second one is your invisible immune system. The visible immune system is pretty obvious. It's your skin, your nose, your mouth, your gut, your lungs. This is where pathogens, viruses enter. And so your visible immune system, which you could see on a drawing in a medical book, are what intercept that. So that's the visible part. The invisible part is the more critical piece. And this is where people fail to understand how to support it and build it. Your invisible immune system are the cells that are created to identify, stop, and attack and remove any pathogen, whether it's a virus or bacteria. And the way it does that is it creates all these different cells. You may have heard of some of them: macrophages, T cells, B cells, white blood cells, killer cells. These are all the things that your invisible immune system create for you. The trick is it cannot make them. So therefore it cannot defend you if it does not have the proper nutrients to do it. And the best analogy I've given to people is, you know, if you're going to have a dinner party, what's the first thing that you do? You go grocery shopping. You go to buy your appetizer, stuff for your entree, your dessert, right? No groceries, no dinner party. Your immune system is the same way. If you have not given it the nutrients or groceries that it needs to make the immune cells to defend you, it simply cannot defend you. It doesn't get any simpler. And you'll be interested to know that 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. Why is that? Because that's where the bacteria in your immune system live, and that's where they get the nutrients. They get them from your stomach as they're passing through. So if you're not giving them the nutrients they need, it cannot defend you. So that's why having a strong immune system is critical to protecting you from getting the COVID. But you have to give it the nutrients it needs, and they're all in the algae. So what is the COVID? What does it do, and why can maybe algae help you if you already have it? So most people know that COVID is a respiratory illness, and so they naturally think about it attacking your lungs, which it does. But what most people do not understand, in addition to that, COVID attacks your blood. What it does is it goes into your blood, and it kicks out the iron atom that's in your hemoglobin. You know, we talked about earlier briefly How about the iron atom carries oxygen in your blood? So when the iron atom is kicked out and replaced by the virus, what does that do? It means your blood can no longer carry oxygen. This is what causes people to die from heart attacks, because if there is no oxygen in your blood, there is no oxygen getting to your cells, your organs, and most notably your heart, which is usually the first to go. That's why people are passing away from COVID with a heart attack. The other thing that the virus does is that it's an acidic, any illness, cancer, viruses, they're all acidic. Remember, I started this whole journey because my sister's oncologist told her to change her diet to an alkaline diet. And why is this important? Well, your blood has a neutral pH, 7.34, and it has to maintain that pH in order to be healthy. But because the virus is acidic, what it does is it strips off the negative charge around the hemoglobin. And when you have the negative charge on your hemoglobin, it's sort of like if you've ever had a magnet, had two magnets, and you push them together and you know how they repel one another. Your hemoglobin is the same way. It has this negative charge around the outside so that it repels one another, and that allows it to carry the oxygen. That allows it to stay circular and go and move through your blood effortlessly. But when the virus is acidic and it strips off that negative charge, what happens? Now the blood clumps. And when you have blood that's clumping, two things happen. One, it cannot carry oxygen, which contributes to the lack of oxygen, why people die from a heart attack. And number two, it clumps. It can't move. So again, that's why people are having, heart attacks or strokes. So number three, what the virus does is that when it kicks out that iron atom, it doesn't disappear. That iron atom now is still in your blood, but is no longer protected in your hemoglobin. Think of your hemoglobin as bubble wrap. When you have the iron atom in the middle of your hemoglobin, the iron atom is carrying oxygen, but it's protected and does not do any damage to anything else because it's got this hemoglobin surrounding it. But when the virus kicks it out of the hemoglobin, it's now a rogue cell. It's in your bloodstream. And if anyone's ever looked at anything that's out by a dock that's made of iron, what does it do? It rusts. Iron is caustic. It's acidic. It causes damage. And so when that iron atom is traveling through your bloodstream, it gets into your lungs and it causes damage. That's why the lungs continue to get damaged, which contributes to them not being able to bring in oxygen. And of course, there's no oxygen being carried because the virus has kicked out the iron atom and also causing the blood to clump. So this is what the virus is doing to your body. Now, the reason why I feel algae could help with this condition, and what everything I've told you so far is all science-based. What I'm telling you now is my conjecture, but I hope one day I can do research to prove it. Because I think algae could help with these conditions because algae is the most alkaline food in the world. And because the virus is acidic, you need to reestablish the pH balance of your blood. And algae is the fastest way to do that because it is the most alkaline food. Algae also has the most chlorophyll in the world. Remember I said chlorophyll is a blood builder. So if the virus is damaging your blood, to me, it just makes sense that if you get more chlorophyll into your blood, because they've used it for other purposes and other illnesses, surely it would help with this condition. Also, algae has the highest concentration of iron in the world. And because the iron is what's being attacked by the virus, if we introduce more iron into the body and into the blood, I have to think that perhaps the blood could start holding the iron again, which allows it to hold oxygen. Now, I will say these are just ideas I have had. They are not confirmed by any science, but an intelligent person, and I like to think of myself as intelligent, I like to think your listeners are as well. If you research algae and you research chlorophyll and you research what the body needs and what the algae provides, you put the two of them together, and it looks to me like it could do some really great things if you are sick. And if you are sick, I would say, what have you got to lose, right? So if you know anybody that is sick, and we do send complimentary packets to doctors who are working on the front line, we're contacted all the time, and we ship them out all the time because they want protection. They want the energy to continue the good fight. But if you know anybody who's sick, please let us know, because I have to think this would be of great help, because it's helped in so many other illnesses. So,
Well,
there's my
thank you very
COVID.
much. And I've been using your ENERGYbits and RECOVERYbits with actually macadamia nuts, which I
Oh,
find delicious,
nice,
for probably 2-3 years now, ever
nice.
since we met at the biohacking conference in
Yeah,
Pasadena.
yeah,
And it's a wonderful product, and I highly recommend it to everyone.
yeah.
And you're doing a great job bringing this to America.
We're doing our best. We're trying. It's taking its time, but you know, the reason why I stay with it is because I have read the science. I know what it's doing. It's helping other people in Asia. Why shouldn't it be helping people here as well? But it needs to be explained, and people need to feel comforted that it does, at least ours does what we say it does. So I'm in this for the long haul. We're just trying to make a contribution. That's it. And it's also the most eco-friendly, sustainable crop in the world. And we're all concerned about the earth, as we should be. So having more algae used in the world for many, many functions is great for Mother Nature, not just you. So yeah, thank you. Well, thank you, Stephen, for letting me share my knowledge. It is the most powerful nutrient that I have found yet. So it's exciting, and I know it's going to be big. It's just taking a while to get the grassroots informed.
Great. So energybits.com. And
Yes, and WOWSA for your 20% discount. Don't forget that. Works on all the products.
great.
So.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure the open water swimming community will respond with great interest.
Well, we have lots of research, so let us know.
Thank you.